Hello all of you out there, and in today's video I'm going to share with you the top 10 most powerful Ark creatures, so let's get into it. In at number 10 is the Basilisk, and this creature is definitely very well renowned for its damage dealing abilities. And what would you really expect? This is a massive snake which can deal so much damage to so many creatures and can really ruin any Ark player's day if used effectively. And the only real downside about this thing is its slightly annoying taming method. Slightly is really an underestimate. Very annoying taming method where you have to use rock drake eggs on operation, but you can use magmasaur eggs and wyvern eggs as well if you want to. Then drop them around it without aggroing it, and then you'll tame yourself one of these things, and that can be an absolute drag, especially if you're using rock drakes on operation for rock drake eggs and you haven't got a rock drake yet. That can be a complete drag, but I don't know why you would just get rock drake eggs for a basilisk before even getting a rock drake. But in terms of their damage, obviously these things have a very powerful bite, but they also have a torpor dealing ability on top of that too. Next up, we have the Rock Drake, and again with the Arboration theme. And this creature really cannot be missed out in any sense at all in terms of powerful creatures. This thing has an insanely incredible bite, also dealing a wealth of damage compared to its size and transportability ratio. As yes, it is all good having a big hunking powerful creature, and actually they are in at the number 1 and number 2 spots, but it is also very important in a creature like this to have the mobility to go around, and its size to damage ratio is absolutely insane, although it definitely is not the most powerful Ark creature. Otherwise this thing would be in number 1, but I'm sure you can infer that because this thing is in at number 9. In terms of just its bite though, it deals a lot of damage, but also it does have a great glide ability as well, which no other Ark creature before that really had. And I'm pretty sure it can't do what the Griffin can do and dive onto creatures and deal damage to them, but still its bite, which I keep saying, I feel like a broken record, it just deals so much damage, and it really can't be discounted when it turns in terms of the Rock Drake's abilities. That kind of bite is just what makes this thing so powerful. But what would you expect? That kind of is the main ability that most carnivores have to deal damage. Now, next up, we have the Rex, and this had to be in the list at some point realistically. This is one of the best boss creatures, partly because it is allowed into boss arenas, but also it is just a very well balanced creature, meaning it has a good health stat and a good damage stat to go along with that too, which some other creatures like the Spino and the Aloe can't really compete with, especially when it comes with health. The Spino does do a little bit more damage than the Rex, but it doesn't have enough health to keep up with it, which is why, in my opinion, the Rex is a more powerful creature. Although this isn't a video about tanks, otherwise creatures like the Stego would be here, but creatures like the Stego pale in comparison compared to the Rex. This creature is just so buff and beefy, and really what would you expect from a carnivore of this size and with a head and teeth that big? You can tell this thing is going to really pack a punch. But low level ones aren't actually the greatest and can be extremely weedy, especially in the stamina and weight department. So if you are taming a Rex, I would definitely say go over level 100 for your first one, as they really aren't very difficult tames, especially on ASA now, as the babies are really easy to find. But unless a really other random circumstance happens, like a Rex gets trapped, or you just find a baby Rex on ASA, which can simply be tamed by press of a button, always try looking for above level 100 Rexes, as that is going to give you the best results, and it is also meaning that if you do breed those Rexes in future or tame more above level 100s, you're going to have a significantly higher chance of defeating those bosses. Now, the Golem again can't be discounted. This creature is literally a living tank, although we aren't talking about tanks today, and apart from it being a tank, it also packs an absolute punch when it comes into damage. This thing is insane at dealing any kind of damage to any kind of creature, really. No creature can really stand this creature in terms of buffs against it, and I'm pretty sure no creature really does have a buff against it, apart from those which has a buff against all creatures. That was really an irrelevant point there. But either way, the Golem is an insanely powerful creature, and you can just see how quickly it shreds through this death worm. And if you have a rock Golem, then it is really easy to tame a mantis, as those death worms are going to be some of the easiest things to kill. Sadly, you can't really take these things into bosses, at least I don't think you can, but still in the real world Ark map, just around the map, these things are absolutely insane. And especially if you transfer cryopods onto Scorched Earth, or just make cryopods on Scorched Earth, these things can be a really good Wyvern trench destroyer, as they can just kill all the Wyverns in the trench, and then boom, these Wyverns are going to be really easy to tame. Next up, we have the Reaper, and this creature, again, is just one of those creatures which has to be on this list for so many reasons. It is a creature of immense power, and it is just absolutely insane how much damage this creature deals, and its taming method is an absolutely amazing one to go on top of that as well. Unless you're on Gen 2, then it is an absolute cheese. But on Operation, it is a real experience to tame yourself a Reaper, and that is something which I really enjoy about this creature. Its taming method, and once it's tamed, there's just such a big journey and sense of progress once tamed one. And also, on top of that, it does deal a hefty amount of damage, although I'm pretty sure it is not allowed into boss arenas. And the Reaper kind of stands with creatures like the Giga in terms of damage, and although they're not as big as a Giga, they definitely pack punch like the Giga does, although not quite as much, but their size is a lot smaller as well, and they are significantly more mobile, which the Giga simply doesn't have. In at number 5 is the Rhyniognatha, and would you really expect any other creature to take this spot on the list, or even be up in the kind of central part of this list? Obviously, this is one of the newer Ark tames, so I can't really put it in at number 1, as we haven't seen its full potential yet, as it hasn't been used for absolute years, but also it hasn't really been nerfed in any kind of way. And the fact that this thing can pick up Rexes and absolutely decimate bases is really something to be said. These creatures deal an insane amount of damage to anything. Like I said, they can absolutely destroy bases and ruin everyone's life apart from the person riding it. And also on ASA, you'll find an abundance of these things, whereas on ASE, these things are extremely rare. And on ASA, I have had several encounters with these things, and with their wealth of abilities, you can easily pretty much demobile another player on a creature, or just anything which you're trying to kill or take for yourself, and then simply dispose of it as you wish, which is not really anything any other Ark creature has, at least to this extent. And it kind of does make sense for its insane power, considering its really long taming method, which requires a hell of a lot of resources if you want 100% effectiveness, although that is not required to get the absolutely insanity out of this creature. And a net gun is going to be extremely helpful in taming it, but obviously in ASA at the moment we don't have access to the net gun, so this thing is actually somewhat even more difficult in ASA, especially because there are more of these things lying around, and when taming one or killing one to get the pheromones, you can really get yourself in a pickle if another one comes around. But also in the early game, if you're flying around on your Pteranodon 2 and one of these things faces you, you're going to have the worst time. Just say goodbye to that Pteranodon. Whereas with Nagi, it might be able to withstand a little bit if it's a low level, but still, these things are absolutely insanely OP, and their taming method kind of roughly follows the Reapers. Next up, we have the Shadowmane, and the reason why I am saying this creature is more powerful is also because it is a lot more useful in some scenarios out there. This thing has the pack buff, it has the hydration buff, and it can even go invisible too, and the list even goes on further than that, but I can't really remember what other abilities this thing wields. Its main claim to fame obviously being that this thing is allowed in bosses, and like the Deinonychus, it is absolutely insane for that. But in the real world too, this thing can jump to incredible heights, meaning that no Pteranodon is safe in the sky when you have one of these things, and you can just see there how high I actually jumped. It is absolutely insane with the mobility of this creature. Also, it can even charge its damage up over time, and it is really great in the water too. Its only real downside is the fact that its taming method is an absolute slog, and is one of the hardest in the game in my opinion. Speaking of the Deinonychus, in at number 3 is the Deinonychus, and the reason why I think this creature is more powerful than the Shadowmane is pretty much because this thing has all the same buffs as the Shadowmane, but one insane advantage. This thing obviously still has the pack buff. Sadly, it can't go invisible, but its mobility is still extremely high, having no full damage and being able to climb up walls. But the main thing its claim to fame has to be is the fact that this thing can inflict insane amounts of bleed damage. Not sure if the Shadowmane can deal bleed damage. I don't think so, as that creature is allowed into bosses, and this is the only creature which is allowed into bosses which has that bleed damage, and it works on bosses too. And when you have a pack on these things, and then you can just absolutely decimate bosses with these things, it is an absolute cheese for every single boss which you face. And I really can't wait for these things to be in ASA when Valguero comes out. on ASA obviously, but we still have them on ASE to enjoy all of the time. These things are pretty much some of the easiest tames in the game, which is really to their benefit of power as well, especially considering their size. They're pretty much the same size as a raptor, but a raptor cannot face this thing in any sense of damage, health, mobility, any of that. This is essentially just the raptor on absolutely insane steroids, and this creature will not disappoint you in any circumstance. In at number 2 is the Giga, and you can probably tell why these things are now on the list and why this thing is at number 2, and from this you can probably guess what's in number 1 anyway. But in terms of the Giga's abilities, this thing is an absolute hunk when it comes to power. Sadly, when it is tamed, it loses its bleed ability, although it is still a beast of anything damage, and its health is one really to be reckoned with. Killing a wild Giga is significantly harder than killing a tamed one, but still one which is tamed will take an absolutely immense long time to actually kill. Unless you're facing the Alpha King Titan, then it might have an easier job of killing all of your Gigas, but that's why you assemble an absolute army of those things. And there's only one other creature which you could really use for killing those titans, which is obviously the creature which is in at number 1. And the fact that this creature is in ASA already, although not very useful until Extinction comes out, it is insane that we still have this creature around. Obviously it was first introduced on the island in 2016, and it was an absolute beast then, and it still is an absolute beast now. Its only real downside is its absolutely abysmal abysmal stamina, also very annoying rage meter, and just general inconvenience. And in at number 1 is the Carcharodontosaurus, which for some reason YouTube chapters always thinks it is a Chronosaurus, and I have no idea what a Chronosaurus is. Maybe it is just a Carcharodontosaurus, but made out of cryopods. Who knows at this point? But the reason why I think this is a more powerful creature than the Giga is mainly because it is a faster creature, it has more mobility, and also when its blood rage is full, it will deal more damage than the Giga, so therefore it is just a more powerful creature. And it doesn't have the rage meter as well, so it effectively has more health too, as the Giga is unusable after that rage meter is full, whereas this thing can go all the way down to 1 HP, and then from there obviously this thing is going to die. Sadly, once tamed, you'll have to dismount it, which is a little bit of an annoying one due to its taming method being very different from the Gigas, basically allowing you to feed it dead creatures and then ride it around, and then obviously kill loads of creatures to get it up to 100%. So it's a little bit sad that you get dismounted off of it, but it kind of does make sense. This thing is an absolute beast, and you really should give it a go. But also, just before I do the outro of this video, I know the Titans and the Titanosaur could be very good on this list. The Managama is another one as well, and also just so many other creatures which I have missed on this list, and I know sometimes you have some other opinions on these things, so always leave them down in the comments below. The most OP Ark creatures. In at number 10 is the Carcharodontosaurus, and there is no lie that this thing is pretty much just an upgraded Giga with immense and insane power, and the fact that this thing doesn't have a rage meter as well, and the fact that this is a somewhat easier 10 than the Giga, this is definitely one of Ark's most OP creatures. This deals so much damage and can really pack a punch, especially in maps like Extinction when you're going to be using this thing to kill a load of titans, and this thing is obviously going to be extremely useful in that example. But also this thing is great for just general combat across the map as well. It can traverse maps with speed, unlike the Giga, as it has a decent stamina stat, although you shouldn't do what I did here and just pump all the levels. That's just there for an example. Don't actually do that in a real world scenario, but it can travel across the map with great speed, and it's not going to run out of stamina like a Giga. And like I said, this thing doesn't have a rage meter, which makes this a lot safer to use, and it has a blood rage ability where at its fullest it will deal even more damage than the Giga can, making this an even more OP carnivore, which I really think that you should tame at some point. And you can go check out my guide on my channel, which I have, if you want to know how to tame one. In at number 9 is the Carno, and this creature is really strong for me in terms of an Ark creature. The Carno, now with ASA, is ridiculously easy to tame, and to be honest is one of the easiest tames in the game, if not the easiest, along with a few others which use the same method. Essentially, you can just find a baby Carno, or if that baby Carno has a parent attached to it at the time, if it hasn't been killed already, then you'll have to kill said parent, and then you have that baby Carno as your own tame. And on single player, they will raise pretty quickly. On official though, I've been told they do not raise in any quick manner. But most people are playing ASA single player, and barely anyone at the moment really is playing ASA on official. So most people will have quick raising times. And the Carno deals an immense amount of damage. Its saddle is really easy to craft, and you can find it in a lot of drops in ASA, and on top of that it deals the bleed ability as well, which some better Ark Carnivores out there do not deal, and that is an ability which is so useful to have in a Carnivore. And yes, the Aloe has it as well, and if you're an Aloe lover and not a Carno lover, you can always put the Aloe in this spot instead of the Carno, but I vastly prefer the Carno over the Aloe, so that is why the Carno is on this list, considering how easy it is to tame in ASA, but it's still ridiculously easy to tame with ASE. This is one of the most OP Carnivores, and you should really utilize it if you haven't already, or get an Aloe if you're that kind of person instead. Next up, we have the Velonasaur, and to me, this is such an unusual Ark creature, as in no other creature in Ark is like this, and obviously it isn't available in ASA at the moment, as the island is the only map, hence why obviously the B-roll here in this video is switching between 2 games at the moment, but I haven't finalized all of my ASA B-roll yet, as, yeah, stuff has been pretty busy at the moment. But apart from that, I should stop talking about my personal life and talk about what makes this thing OP. In terms of the Velonasaur, this can shoot all kinds of spines, which actually, sadly, do not scale when you level up its melee damage. But you can always level up that stamina stat, and then you will deal even more. You won't deal more damage, sorry, you'll be able to shoot more over a longer period of time. Yep, it's very late at the moment, but you know, still keeping up with the daily uploads. But again, the leveling up that stamina will give you more firing abilities, as in you can fire more, and obviously you can just do the general hack and slash, and also you can shake the spines off of you as well. This creature just deals an insane amount of damage, and its ability is really cool, it's really effective, it works really well, and this ability is strangely creepy when I look at it like this. In at number 7 is the Thyla, and this creature is one which is highly respected and is very easy to tame with the assistance of a net gun, but a very simple trap will get it done pretty easily. And sadly on ASA it isn't quite as useful, as the terrain is very finicky at the moment, but in ASE this is an extremely useful carnivore, more so than in ASA, kind of, although ASE has more maps, which obviously means it's somewhat more useful in ASA, but I would say it's more useful in ASE as the terrain is much less harsh, and some terrain the Thyla simply can't traverse in ASA as it is too geometrically complex. I don't know why Wildcard went for that. It might just be a bit of a geometry bug as well, as a lot of these stones are just floating in the air, and you'll see a lot of that if you have ASA or if you're just watching through this B-roll. Yes, that isn't just an issue with my game, everyone's game at the moment has the floating rocks, as for some reason they don't mesh in this terrain properly. But in terms of the Thyla's use and why this is OP, obviously it is a great travel mount, which is really hard to find, especially one like this, as obviously it will deal immense amount of damage on top of that, which some travel mounts really don't have. The Galley is an example there, and obviously it has that bleed ability, if I haven't said that already, and you'll see it in use with a Kentro later. And albeit the Thyla is a little oversized, which is why this Kentro looks so tiny, they're actually not too tiny when you look at them from a player perspective, but Thylas are for some reason absolutely massive in ASA, and in ASE for that matter. The model was pretty much the same, I don't think they've changed it. Sadly, the Thyla isn't allowed in bosses, but it is still an extremely OP travel mount, and it deals insane amounts of damage, and the fact that it can climb so many things and jump off of that and pounce onto creatures in the air is so cool, and is extremely overpowered. Next up, we have the Shadowmane, and I can essentially summarize this creature as the Thyla, but better. Albeit it doesn't have the bleed ability, this has pack buffs, the hydration buff, and a lot more mobility than the Thyla. Albeit it can't climb walls and vertical surfaces, it will just be able to simply jump over them, and this thing can jump to absolutely insane heights, some of which you will see in a moment. And also it does deal more damage than the Thyla, and it is a much nicer form factor, being a little bit smaller so it can fit into caves if you want to use it for caving. And obviously, again, this isn't going to be great for ASA at the moment, as obviously it isn't in ASA, but in ASE, this is one of the most OP creatures, as it is so densely packed with abilities, and it is a great swimmer as well. But it makes sense because its codename in the game is Lionfish Lion. Its only real downside is its taming method, which can be an absolute drag at the worst, and some of the most infuriating things that you'll have to do. But if it goes well for you, you're one of the lucky ones. In at number 5 is the RG, and the RG is just that creature which I think every Ark player should tame at some point. It is just so essential for so many things, especially on ASA at the moment, as the island is the only map available. And if you haven't got yourself an RG already, and if you're in the position to get an RG, if you're not yet, that's fine, wait until you can. But if you are in the position to get an RG, get an RG, and if you still aren't in the position to get an RG, get one as soon as you can. These things, firstly, for a start, can pick up a wealth of creatures, which is extremely useful for obviously taming, but in the case of this creature especially, it can pick up the Anki, which is great for harvesting metal, and the fact that this has weight reduction on metal, and insane weight in general, and insane stamina too. This is one of the best creatures, if not the best creature out there for transporting metal off mountains, and also paired with the Anki, the best creature for getting all of that metal as well. Obviously, it's not going to be doing the gathering, but it will be doing all of the transporting. And you could say the Rhyniognatha maybe is better for that job, but that creature is insanely hard to tame compared to the RG. Also, the RG saddle acts as a portable smithy too, which is a really nice ability to have, and if it eats a dead body, it has a really nice regen ability, one which you really can't miss. And if you've got into a fight at some point and you need to heal quickly, just kill a very simple, easy to kill Ark creature, and your health will absolutely skyrocket. Speaking of the Rhyniognatha, and also the Rhyniognatha was in the background of the last bit of B-roll there, the next creature on the list is the Rhyniognatha. And the reason why this thing is OP is mainly just considering how much damage this thing deals, and also how many creatures this can pick up, and the size of creatures it can pick up. The Rhyniognatha can pick up Rexes, and the fact that it is an ASA at the moment is kind of insane, and to some people's not great opinion, as many people out there right now are saying the Rhyniognatha shouldn't be in ASA this early, and tech shouldn't be in ASA this early. And largely I would agree with that as well, as we kind of want a bit of a more primitive Ark experience before all of the other maps come. But obviously, tech and the Rhyniognatha is on the island on ASE, so it kind of makes sense on ASA, obviously, why those creatures are there. And I'm not necessarily angry about it, but I know some other people definitely are not as happy as I am with the state of ASA, not just because of the performance, but also because of the lack of primitive survival in that early stages of the game, like Wildcard kind of hinted at, and that was kind of what we were promised until obviously other maps would release, and then it would kind of turn into ASE gradually, but obviously with the superior graphics and supposedly superior performance. Also, in terms of the Rhyniognatha's taming method, which definitely is a long drag, it is actually largely pretty easy if you do take your time with it. It will just take a lot of time, and obviously you'll need all of the right resources. But if you want to tame the Rhyniognatha in ASE or in ASA for that matter, you can always check out my guide, and you'll find there how to easily tame the Rhyniognatha, and a lot of the b-roll which you've been seeing in this video is from that exact video, so you can kind of get a hint of how to tame it, and you should know how to tame it from this b-roll. But if you want a more in-depth guided way to tame this thing, then you can always go check out my video, and you just need to search up Rhyniognatha taming. Just search it on my channel and you'll find it right there. In at number 3 is the Deinonychus, and this creature is insane for one main reason, and that is why it is so OP. The fact that this thing is allowed in bosses, which the Thyla isn't, and the Thyla would be significantly higher on the list if it was allowed into bosses. But also, in my opinion, the Deinonychus just is a better creature, as it can do everything the Thyla can, but just better in kind of every way. Firstly, it will deal that bleed ability again, but it can also grapple onto larger creatures, which the Thyla obviously can't, and the fact that this is allowed in bosses is absolutely insane, as you can shred through them. Unlike the Thyla as well, the Deinonychus also has the pack buff, which is insanely great to have. Sadly, it doesn't have the hydration buff like the Shadowmane, but that wouldn't really make sense with this creature, and it does make sense with the Shadowmane. Also, if you have a pack of these things, again, all of that damage is just going to scale so much, and you can beast through pretty much any boss, apart from the Moda, obviously, as you're not going to take these things into the Moda with absolute ease. And also, these things don't take full damage as well, which is just a nice little comfort to have. And they have great agility as well. You can see how fast the Deinonychus is. This is on default speed as well, and also they can parkour up walls, and obviously any kind of vertical surface, like the Thyla can. Obviously, they can't pounce onto creatures in midair, but with a creature with this wealth of other abilities, you don't really miss that, and I don't really tend to use that ability on the Thyla anyway. So if you have the choice between a Thyla and Deinonychus, go Deinonychus every single time. In at number 2 is the Crystal Wyvern. And some people may be popping off at me here, as you're like, how is this thing better than the Deinonychus? And in my opinion, this isn't a better creature than the Deinonychus, but it is more OP considering how much easier this thing is to tame than the Deinonychus. Albeit the Deinonychus tame isn't the most difficult in the world, this is one of the most, if not, I would actually say, probably one of the easiest tames in Ark. Maybe even the easiest tame, apart from maybe a couple which are just so easy you don't even really have to count them as tames. They're just a thing which just happens instantly. And the only real barrier for this thing, which is why it wasn't in the number 1 spot, is because there is a level 65 barrier. But you are literally getting a Wyvern with a passive tame with just some crystal, and it is so easy to do. There's just a spot where you can stand on its back and then just passive feed it crystal, and you can just sit there chilling back, watching a movie or watching whatever, and then just pressing this button, which is E on a keyboard. I can't remember what the bindings are for consoles, and then boom, you have yourself a Wyvern. And obviously, because it's a Wyvern, no saddle is required. And if you get the Blood Crystal Wyvern, you have one of the most OP creatures in the game. And the only real downside, again, with them not having a saddle, is that they don't have armor. And another kind of downside to these things is obviously that level 65, but you can easily do a note run, which will get you up to level 65 really quickly, and then you can have one of the best Ark tames so quickly. And in at number 1 is the Desmodus. And really, did you expect any other creature to be in the number 1 spot? This creature is just packed with so many abilities, you can't leave it off of the list. Firstly, it has the Sanguine Elixir, which is an absolute cheat for tames, as it essentially does a third of the taming process for you. Also, in terms of taming, it isn't the easiest in the world, but a lower level won't give you as much anguish as a Shadowmane tame. And once you've got one, the second is going to be much easier. It kind of works with the Rock Drake and the Bloodstalker. The next one is always going to be much easier. And also, the Desmodus has an ability which no other creature has. This can farm blood bags, which when before this thing came out wasn't possible. And also, like a Tapijara, it can hook on to walls as well, all the way to upside down surfaces too. Just make sure you don't dismount, as I'm sure some people have accidentally pressed that button when they meant to grapple onto a wall. Easy mistake to make, I know. And they also have the glide ability. This creature is just so OP.
So thank you to my wonderful patrons Katerina Puchkova, Karina Thorne, Dominic Masajewski, and Ethan Tapia, who have all supported me through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. If you want to join this list, then go join Patreon or YouTube members, but thanks to all of these guys.